I am Donna Colbert Anderson. I'm a wildlife photographer. I've been doing it for many, many years. I photograph everything that walks, crawls, flies, has fur, feathers, scales. I've had a couple people ask me, do I do weddings? I don't.
Does it count for us when we got extinct try and ceiling?
No, I don't do weddings, so. Anyway, I have to warn you, my allergies came with me today also, and they did not pay to get in. So you all are going to go on it's like a photo adventure tour to the Canadian Wildlife Management Area, and right next to that is Churchill, Manitoba. And this area is classified as subarctic, and it is the southernmost range for polar bears. Most other populations are found in the Arctic region. This is a very harsh climate. Not only is it remote, it offers life-threatening cold. Wind that will rip right through you, wind that will rip a door off of a tundra buggy and get the maintenance man very upset. It's very arid. The whole time we were there was 4% humidity. That's extremely arid. It is a featureless landscape. It is studded with rocks and boulders, big boulders. The highest concentration of polar bears in this region occurs in October and November. And that's where you will see, if you look at tours for polar bears, they run in October and November. These bears begin to gather. They are waiting. In the background there is Hudson Bay. That is the body of water. They are waiting for the ice to freeze up so they can walk out. It is referred to by polar scientists as land fast ice. It's attached to the land. So they're waiting for this ice to freeze up. It has to be at least 4 inches thick to support the weight of polar bears. And they walk out on that ice when it starts to form, and they jump up and down to see if it will support their weight. They're hungry, because when they come ashore in the late spring, after that time, they are not eating. They are in what scientists call a fasting state. They're not eating. So that's what they're waiting, and that's why ideally you will see as many polar bears as you possibly can in October and November, as opposed to other times of the year. So we made our way to this very remote area, and we'll just look at a couple of polar bear pictures. Let's see, November of last year, 2 days after our general election. But 14 months before that, I did a Google search and I typed photograph polar bears. And frankly, I was amazed at the number of hits that came up. And I first began communicating via email with a private guy. And he had his own, it was a truck of some kind, and he took 4 people. And the more questions I asked, the less comfortable I felt with such a remote area that we were not familiar with, very, very cold. And we would be left on our own for too many things. And I didn't like that. I didn't like the idea of staying in downtown Churchill, population a little over 800 people. And trying to find a place to eat dinner, and you walk out, and you're going down the street, and there's a polar bear coming. Well, that is horrifying to me. So, no. So ultimately, we looked into the tundra buggy tours. And at the time, there were 3 licensed operators. Now there are only 2. One has had its permits rescinded. But the one that we went with is still operating, Frontiers North Adventures. They've been doing tundra buggy tours for over 30 years. They have a very good track record for you have to think of your personal safety, especially with these guys. So they had 3 tours. One was a day tour. No, forget it. A buggy holds 40 people. On a day trip, they fill the buggy. So that means 20 people have a window seat and 20 people don't. Well, I'm not going to risk not having a window seat. So that was out. The next tour that they offer was 2 days out on the tundra, a day of what they call cultural things, and a day of dog sledding. Now that would be fun, I think, but I want to see polar bears. I want maximum saturation of polar bears. The last tour, photographer's tour, don't have to be a photographer. You pay your money, you go. 4 full days out on the tundra. That was it. When I say a full day, 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, you eat lunch on the buggy. You don't go back to the tundra buggy lodge, but you're staying in a tundra buggy lodge in the Wildlife Management Area. You're not going back and forth to Churchill, and I'll explain why. That's a good thing. So we booked that tour. They required a very small deposit, so that we were all set except for a couple of things. You have to understand that polar bears can and do attack humans. Some people have told me, and I know this is true, they look soft and they just look so cuddly, like you want to hug them. No, that's a Hallmark movie or a Walt Disney movie. There is an organization that keeps track and confirms polar bear attacks against humans. And this number goes from 1870 to 2014. They have 73 confirmed attacks against humans. Just something you have to keep in mind. 20 of those resulted in death, and the rest, well, great bodily injury. So, and this is getting me to the point the tour operator requires mandatory trip insurance, mandatory medical evacuation as part of that. Churchill has no hospital. They have a health clinic. They have one drugstore. They have one grocery store. The drugstore is not a chain drugstore that we have around here. So they require that. Now, the tour operator has a company that they like. They have a link on their website. I went to it, I looked, I got a quote. You get an online quote. It was very pricey, trip insurance. So I looked around. I decided I was going to look around, shop around. And ultimately, we went with a policy through AIG. I'm sure some of you have heard of AIG. So that was half the price of the other insurance company. So, okay, we bought that. And you have to send them policy numbers, everything. They don't take your word for it, they check.
What did it cost?
For 2 of us with medical evacuation, that's a really good question. because that's what makes it pricey, because you decide, you click in the box, do you want to decide if you have a problem? It doesn't have to, you're not going to be attacked by a bear, but what if you slipped and fell, you broke a bone? Okay, do you want to go to the closest hospital via helicopter? That would be Winnipeg. There's no hospital up in Churchill. That's Winnipeg. Or do you want to go to your home hospital? Yes. Now that's what runs up the price. So if you want to go to Johns Hopkins, Mercy Medical, University of Maryland, well, you're going to pay more for it, but that's your decision. That's the option we chose. Winnipeg probably has a decent hospital because that's a good sized city in Canada, but we don't live in Canada. So, anyway, saying that $100,000 of medical evacuation insurance, you can get higher than that if you want. For the two of us, it was $3,300. Whoa. The other company was $7,200.
Is that because of where you were going?
Yes. Yes, more so than anything else, because I called them on the phone and I said, why is this so expensive? Did I click on the wrong box? And they said, that is the only policy we will write for you to go to such a remote area. You think you know what? I thought I knew what remote was sitting in my office. No, I had no idea. So that's why and if you have a problem, it's a helicopter out.
But if you went to Winnipeg, or where was it, the other city, it would have been somewhat less expensive, I assume, than flying all the way back here to Maryland.
Oh, yes, it would have, that's right, because the insurer, the underwriter is saying, we will airlift you out to the closest hospital. Well, that happens to be Winnipeg.
Yeah.
So that makes it less expensive. I never looked at that option because maybe I'm a control freak or something, but I didn't like that idea.
So the Winnipeg Jets.
Huh?
There's a hockey team in Winnipeg.
Oh. So, and they covered all the boilerplate stuff, and search and rescue and all that, and death and everything else. I mean, what I didn't learn looking into travel. This is the first time we've ever traveled and had insurance. And we've gone to some other places that, but they said, no insurance, you don't go. So.
Because the bear probably too.
So, okay, so we got that was required, the insurance, and some people complained about it, like they thought maybe the tour operator should pay for that, but that's an individual thing. I didn't agree with that, but anyway. The last thing you have to think about is how do you stay warm in such a cold place? I am somebody who hates cold. I don't like cold around here, much less up there. So they have a link on their website, Frontiers North Adventures. They have an outfitter. If you don't want to buy a down parka, you can rent one. You can rent boots and you can rent wind pants. They're called wind pants. I've had a down parka from Eddie Bauer Outlets for years. And so the only thing that we needed were boots. I mean, really warm boots. Columbia, that's another line of clothing I wear. They have a line called Omni Heat, and it works. It works. So we got Omni Heat boots and wore boot socks, not regular socks, boot socks. And we were fine. I mean, the worst part is trying to pack a down parka, get it into the suitcase. Packing was very stressful for me because the stuff, these big heavy articles of clothing into your suitcase, and they're really restrictive when it comes to size and weight of your suitcase. And of course, I was dragging every piece of camera equipment I have, every piece. You don't go that far and say, well, I don't think I'll take this, because you're not going to go back there again. Well, more than likely, I mean, I don't expect to. So the outfitter will bring any rental clothes right to your group hotel. You pack it in your bag. You have a chartered flight up to Churchill, from Winnipeg to Churchill. The only other way to get there is a 2.5-day train ride. No, I wasn't going to do that.
Can I suggest, why don't you go to the map? Because I think this will make more sense if they can see.
Yes, that was my next slide. Okay. We left from BWI. We had a lengthy layover in Chicago. There's not that many flights to Winnipeg. That's why. So we added an extra day before and after, because you can't really be certain anymore. So the chartered flight left out of Winnipeg, and that's what got all of us. We all piled onto 40 people onto one chartered flight to Churchill. So, let's see. Let me see where here. Yeah. Okay. So, when we got up there, we had the cultural things in downtown Churchill. That was okay. Polar Bears International, we went to their learning center. That was an excellent presentation. That was very good. So by the end of the day, it gets dark up there early. By 3:30, we went to the Tundra Buggy dock. I'll be showing the map, not yet, but I'll be showing the map on that. We piled into the actual Tundra Buggy that we were going to be riding around in for 4 days. And it was dark when we actually started out. This is a picture I took with using a cell phone. All my equipment was packed. My real camera was packed. And it was dark. And the light is from the second Tundra Buggy in back of us. So I had to wait till we went around a curve, for those headlights to illuminate the foreground of this image. And the moon was up. But this is the only time I didn't feel unsafe. It was disconcerting. I couldn't see, I couldn't understand what the landscape was like, because I couldn't see. But here's the other reason why I'm glad we stayed in the Tundra Buggy Lodge. You would have to go back and forth every day from Churchill out to this wildlife management area. It's an hour and a half to go 9 miles on an unmaintained trail. It was quite bumpy, rough. So it took an hour and a half. We finally got there. We unloaded. We had our dinner, another orientation on what you don't do, usually what you don't do, and everybody crashed. They went to their bunk, their sleeping berths, and they crashed. Everything looks better the next day. This is the Tundra Buggy Lodge where we actually slept, ate, showers. These are stationary, these don't move. So the two on the left are the sleeping buggies, the two with the little windows. Everybody has a window. And I saw a polar bear go by one night. I looked out my window, just went strolling by. Then I'll show you what it is like. Here's where you sleep for 5 nights. This is the before picture. I won't show you the after picture when everybody unloads all their stuff, because that's it. That's all the room you have.
Who had the top bunk, you or Dick?
Oh, I did. You know I did. Yeah, the ladder does slide back and forth. It doesn't come out this way, but yes. And there are no doors. There are no doors. You have curtains. It's like dorm living, I guess. And you have your own heater. we shut ours off. It was actually comfortable, as long as you realize you're not going to spend the rest of your life living like this. So, so you can recharge all the stuff that you brought, and this is looking down the hallway from we were on the very end, and that turned out to be a good thing. But down at the end of this hallway, where you see that woman going out that door, 3 bathrooms, 20 people. Do the math. Do the math. Shared the bathrooms. 2 had showers. The other had a sink and a toilet. The showers had 2-minute timers. Yeah. Now the water, I have to say, comes out nice and it's wonderful, perfect temperature. So, but it worked because everybody tried to be considerate of the person waiting to use one of the restrooms. So it did work. It was surprisingly quiet. You are so exhausted after a day of being out there. It was quiet. You just calmed down. Right next to our berth is a cloakroom, and that's where you can put your big, heavy pieces of clothing and boots and whatnot. This door on the right goes to the outside observation deck. So, and there's a radio after hours should you need to summon, if you need a staff member to come, and they'll be right there. I'm gonna go back real quick. The third buggy from the left has an observation deck, and that was really cool. And it's a lounge, what they call lounge buggy. You can get coffee, tea, snacks, and whatnot. It's where the presentations are made. Every afternoon we have a presentation. And so it has a big screen similar to this, no TV. And it had the weather. I never bothered looking at the weather. And that night's dinner menu. So I don't have a picture of that here. But the next buggy is the dining buggy. Big windows. We ate breakfast and dinner. Breakfast is self-serve, a huge buffet, hot and cold. There was no reason to go hungry on this trip. Dinner was served to nice ladies. They came around and they served you, and the food was good. You had a choice of wine to start, and then you had a 3-course meal. This young man, well, he was not the chef, but he was helping the chef. But they had a full-size kitchen. I couldn't believe how big. This is just a glimpse on the right side of the kitchen. And they fed 40 people every evening, dinner, and breakfast, and then, of course, staff. So, and the food was excellent. This young man is fixing a starter course.
Did they have like box lunches then?
No, they sent out a hot lunch the chef would radio, they all have radios, conversations between the buggies, and the chef would radio and say, lunch is ready. He'd ask the driver, where are you? And then someone would, in a smaller buggy, would bring it out. So it was either soup, hot soup and sandwiches. We had chili one day. One day we had lasagna. I mean, yeah, it was very good. Our driver is the one who served us lunch. That's before, this is a picture of before I ate my food. That's the only one I took before I ate. Just some polar bear, just some little factoids, I guess. The Churchill population continues to decline. I don't have a more recent population number than this because population counts are not done every year. But I thought it was interesting that polar bears do not hibernate like, say, grizzly bears do. They can eat 100 pounds of seal blubber at one time.
Oh.
Yeah. And I did not know they have black skin. It helps keep them warm, but mostly of late they have a problem staying cool enough. And this polar bear is the same one, the big guy right back there. When we go out, I was struck by how silly sometimes they could be. They're just goofing off. These are males. Mostly what you see are males. It's not mating season. So they're, frankly, some of them are bored and they spend a lot of time rolling around in the snow too. And they'll just start, one will smack the other. They're sort of like bad kids is what they are. And they'll just start goofing off. And this is why they probably spend a lot of time rolling around in the snow, because that's how they clean their fur. I never realized that. But this is mostly what you see them doing, rolling around like this. They don't have anything else to really do until they can get back out on the ice again and start eating. But they do just. And all the way in the back there is that's Hudson Bay. It's only partially, it's not really frozen at this point when we were there.
Well, when were you there during the year? What was it?
November, the second week of November. But they only operate, as I said, October, November. And I checked this tour operator, I checked yesterday, their tour schedule. And it's interesting that almost all their November tours are already booked, but hardly any in October.
Donna?
Yeah.
During this period, are the bears not eating anything?
Well, they scavenge for food. They might find some bird eggs. They might find a carcass of something, a small mammal. They'll eat twigs, leaves. They'll eat just about anything because they don't have access to what they really should be eating. They are truly in a fasting state, and that's why people are never allowed on the ground, because we're food.
And the fasting's not by choice, there's
That's
just
correct,
everything for them to get to. And how long does this 100 pounds of seal blubber last? How often do you have to eat your 100 pounds?
Well, well, that's good. When they first get out, with Polar Bear International scientists spoke, 3 of them spoke one afternoon, did a presentation. And when they first get back out on the ice and can hunt, mostly it's ringed seals. They're ravenous. Males can have to fast up to 5-6 months. Females, it's up to 8 months because they have the cubs. So that's a long time to go for a marine mammal this size and not have what it's really supposed to be eating. It's the blubber. They refer to them as lipivores, not carnivores. They don't function their best eating protein. It's hard on their kidneys. And so that's why they eat they want the blubber. So for them to eat a seal, maybe 2 days of food, it depends. With a mother with cubs, she has to feed cubs too. So, but they might not catch a seal every day. Predators don't necessarily eat every day.
Donna, I have a question off of Zoom. Bill Curry is asking, what lens did you use for most of your images?
Oh, a photography question, Bill. I took 4 lenses, and for something like, say, like this, I was using, it was 200 to 600. I had a small bean bag. The windows in the Tundra buggy go down from the top. not the bottom up, because something could get you. And so I had a small beanbag I put over the window to steady the camera if I was shooting from the inside. As a matter of fact,
Could you open the windows?
yeah,
She just put the
Yep.
beanbag
Well, I
over.
knew you were having a beanbag then.
But that was when the
There.
window was down and
This-
it sat on the
Yes.
ledge.
Here's our sister, if you will, Tundra buggy. There were two of us. Now, so I'm in our buggy taking a picture of the other buggy, and you can see the windows down from the top. Because when they stand up, if they come close enough, and they do to the buggy, they stand up. Our guide was very nervous because no scarf hanging out the window. And somebody had a cell phone on one of those sticks, and he was going to put it out the window, and the guy, he's responsible for all of us, our safety. He said, no, can't do that. If your cell phone drops out the window, yeah,
I assume those buggies have facilities on them. They don't want anybody hanging their butt out the window.
only you would ask a question like that. Yes, there is one, they describe it as environmentally friendly toilet. One. That's okay, it was fine.
It was cold.
Huh?
I bet it was cold.
This is an electric vehicle buggy. They have two. They're so quiet, so they don't disturb the bears. The sound of a diesel engine doesn't disturb the bears as much. So supposedly when you're moving, the windows are supposed to be up, but as you can see, somebody forgot to put the window up. But when the bears show up, it's very intense. Let's see here. This is our drive. Now this is our driver, Luke, and for a vehicle this size, which weighs 40,000 pounds, yeah, it's big. And I'm going to go back for a second. The batteries that provide the electricity are run containers, metal containers that run between each wheel, front wheel and the back wheel, ×2. The heater does not run off of the batteries because it would be drained in no time. So there's a small diesel engine of some kind that provides the so-called heat. When the windows are all down, you can just forget it. There is no heat. The heater can't keep up. But look how small the steering wheel is for this huge vehicle. It was amazing. And the screen to the right, he controlled the whole vehicle from that touch screen. And one day I asked him if I could, we had stopped and we were taking pictures. And I asked him if I could sit in the seat. So I said, sure. And he was a nice guy. And that display said one word on it. It said park. It was just like, it was like a car. Yeah, so he was a very good driver. He kept us safe. And he made sure that we got into the best position possible to photograph these bears.
And he has white hair and a white beard.
Yes,
I mean,
yeah,
come
he
on.
fit right in. Yes, that's what I thought too. And he was saying how he had to trim his beard up a little bit. It was getting too long. I don't know if there was some regulation or what. But this is a picture of the other buggy, and I'm hanging out the window of the one we are in to take this because it really shows how close, this is a male, how close they come. The tires are 5.5 feet tall. They are grossly underflated for a reason. I think our driver said 6 PSI. I mean, 6, that's nothing. That's why they look so flat, really. And these photographers there are 4 bears approached. The one came up and leaned up against the buggy, and there are 3 others. That's what that one guy is photographing.
He's probably 9 feet tall.
That bear is
yeah.
The little circles, can you see those little circles? Well, in there are numbers, and that's number of feet off the ground. So the highest number is, thank you, the highest number is 9, so up to the top of that railing there is about 10 feet. Yeah. So this was, they're naturally curious anyway.
What are these?
Yes, and you're not allowed to have no food outside, forbidden. No, not even your water container is allowed. When you go out, you have camera equipment, and that's it, and don't slam the door.
Have they become like this because people have fed them in the past?
No, they're hungry,
Yeah, they.
and, yeah,
They're looking
it
to
is.
see how much water do you have over that?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we are really not much of a meal, to tell you the truth, but they don't know that. No, it is forbidden to do that. They would lose, if it was reported, the permits to operate these vehicles in there. It's controlled by the provincial government of Manitoba. So the government issues 20 permits. If you don't have a permit, you don't go in there. And they would rescind the permits. I mean, somebody else just got 2 permits rescinded. That's it. You don't operate. But that's made with that limey green hat. And then that's just what it's like to be out there. That shows my photographer's gloves. I had to buy photographer's gloves where I have a touch screen on the back of my camera. And so it exposes the index finger and the thumb, and then you can cover it up again. Yeah, B&H photo. That's what I got.
What type of camera do you use?
I have a Nikon. It's mirrorless. It's digital, of course, but it's a Z9. There is nothing above that at this point yet from Nikon. And I took 4 different lenses. So it's a wonderful camera for wildlife photography. There were people there that had twice the amount of equipment. I wasn't that bad. There were others far worse than me. This shows you down here in the lower left, Katrina. That's all right. Tundra Buggy Lodge there. Can we zoom in? There. Oh, perfect. This is where we boarded the buggy that the guy Luke drive around with us in it. These are some of the trails. I want to mention about that private guide I was talking to. I didn't realize this at the time. He didn't have permits. So the only, can you zoom in a little bit? Yes.
Which area?
The halfway point and the Tundra Buggy dock there. So that meant since he didn't have permits from the government, he could only drive us, if we had gone with him, he could only take people from the Tundra Buggy dock following that green line. You'd be missing almost everything. That's it, because he didn't have permits. So we made our way that night all the way up here to, this is where the stationary buggies are that form the lodge. There is one other tour operator that has permission to be in there and have a place where people stay overnight. One other operator now. That's it. Nobody else. And they are much further to the west than this. This was really a terrific location, frankly. But I never knew at the time that was the difference between a private guide and going with a licensed operator. Does anybody else have any? We could go around, our driver could go around. This is where we had to turn around. He had to turn around if we went this far. But the rest of the area that you see, not the green line, but everything else, he could drive the buggy. He has to stay on trails. You have to stay on the trail. You just can't go off on your own. he could drive over there were like little lakes if the ice was strong enough, and he misjudged. He decided to drive over this lake, and we got out to the middle, and we heard ice cracking. So we all stood up and looked out the window, and we could see the cracks radiating out from the vehicle, and then it went crash into the ice, through the ice, but he got us out. He did get us out.
Oh, brother.
Which was really
Imagine you're glad you had that helicopter right out.
That's the real reason why you need the insurance, not the
Oh, yeah.
bears.
So up there at halfway point, that looks like there's something man-made in the way the shoreline is. Is there a?
No, it's a very jagged shoreline,
Oh.
and this part of it just is marsh and shallow. But for polar bears to hunt seals, they have to be able to go out much further, because seals are dependent on the ice also. Their pups are worn out on the ice, if you can imagine that. Okay. Some days, this is our guide, and he has a composite of a polar bear skull. He was trying to show us how well they are adapted to hunting seals, and he wanted a volunteer. Never volunteer for something if you don't know what you're going to get yourself. This woman she came to Churchill, Manitoba from Australia. This was a very international group of people. And I want to say something about that. On the other buggy were 4 Russians. They had polar bears in Russia. They came to Churchill, Manitoba, and they all wore bright red down parkas, bright red wind pants. Yeah, 3 never spoke any English. They spoke Russian, and the 4th man he did speak English in addition to Russian. But anyway, they were and they could eat. Boy, could they eat! I think they lost money on that food budget with those guys. Anyway, I just want to. I'm going to get a sip of water, but I'll show you some of the pictures that I just polar bears. This is a very personal favorite.
How far away were you from the polar bears? I mean, like, for example, that shack.
Yeah, for example, every situation was different, and I thought, I know it. Oh, here, my camera will record this. It's called distance to subject. So let me see if I have that one. You're lucky. But now that was 174 feet. But I had a
Telephone.
yeah, 500-600. It was probably I don't know what I had it dialed out to, but that was that wasn't hard. It was that far away because look at all the background I had too. If that bear had been closer, there would have been considerably less background. I'm going to get my sip of water here. This is called sparring, and one smacks the other, and then it just escalates into they'll start gnawing on each other. And, I say man learned to fly from birds, and man learned to wrestle from bears. I mean, this was just all the time.
But they're playing, are they playing?
Yes.
It doesn't become a fight.
Well,
Probably sometimes it's
it can. That you could see some of the fur was tinged a little bit with blood, but that's just that's how they act.
The one on the left looks a lot thinner.
Yes, see, they're waiting. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Selena. They're waiting to eat. So, and like I say, they're bored. I think they're bored, like kids,
And these are mainly the guys playing around. The women the girls are just,
They avoid The females avoid the males except for when it's breeding season. And especially if they have cubs, like this one. She approached from a great distance, the buggy, and she wasn't real close, and all of a sudden she turned around and she ran. She ran as fast as she could run, and her two subadult cubs ran also. And now we were stopped, the buggy was stopped, and our driver and the guide both jumped up out of their seat and they started looking out the windows because they knew for her to act that way, there was a male around someplace. And the male, she weight-wise doesn't come close. And male polar bears will kill cubs.
But which one of those is the mother?
The mother is on the right. She is
Somewhere in the front.
in the front, yeah, and then the other two, we don't know gender. They look pretty much adult-like, but our guide said they're not ready to be on their own yet. So they're still dependent on her for their safety and everything.
How old are they when they do leave their mother?
It varies. They could be a year and a half. It also depends on how much food they're getting. You know, and that's a problem. I mean, you look at her, I think she looks thin.
Do they suckle?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. When they're born, when their cubs are born, they're about the size of a guinea pig. They're very small, but her milk fat is something like 34%. I mean, it's very high. But they have to grow up fast. When they come out of that den, boy,
Would they still be suckling at this age?
they probably would because they have nothing else to eat. They have no other source of food other than her. But she'll get to the point where she won't be able to produce milk.
And that's what I was thinking
Yeah,
about food
yeah.
and water.
Mm-hmm. And she's waiting like all the rest of them to go out on the ice.
Are the cubs born in the spring or in the summer because of the temperature?
The mating season is like April, could be March, April. Then they go to an area for denning and maternity area is what they call it. And it's it's even more remote than this, and it's highly restricted. They don't want people going in there. And you would have to go, you always have to have a guide. And the government really controls who goes into that area. They don't want these females disturbed when they're.
Is that still in the tundra area or?
Yes, yes. I'll show you where that is.
Here, you take a drink and I'll go to the next.
Oh, yeah. So they did approach the second time. I was sort of upset because I thought there was an opportunity to photograph a female with her cubs. And we had missed it, but about 10 or 15 minutes later, our driver spotted them again. And this time she did come close.
Do they normally have two cubs?
Yes, they normally have twins. If they're too emaciated from not getting enough to eat, sometimes they only have one, and that's the problem. That's why their numbers continue to drop in the Churchill.
Because it's getting too warm.
Yes, yeah. They were very, very lovely little family. This is just something like I've already gone over, but the sea ice that forms later and later and melting earlier in the spring, polar bears that depend on the ice have it much more difficult than coastal bears, as they call it. Now I gotta get this pointer. This area is where we were. We were in the Hudson Bay, western Hudson Bay, and then this, can you see where it says southern Hudson Bay there? That's where the denning and the birthing area is for this population. Oh, there, that's good. Yes. So we were in the western area part, and to go over into the other southern part, you can get there, but boy, it's very restricted. This just shows some of the other the 5 countries that have polar bear populations. Russia, Greenland, which is owned by Denmark. Yeah. I'm not allowed to say, but you can see me afterwards. The Barents Sea is Svalbard. Svalbard owned by Norway. Of course, Russia, we don't have a lot of information on Russia. It's too remote, there's no infrastructure, and frankly, it's not politically safe to go there. And Alaska, yes, Alaska, correct. This is just some of the population numbers. They always give a range. There is no, nor do they do population counts every year. Some of these, frankly, are guesses, especially when you get into Russia. There was a new polar bear population discovered in southeastern Greenland, and I just highlighted that in red. There's always been one on the western side, but this was a new population. Only 200 to 400, but we'll take anything we can get. And this, it shows you how much further if you want to go to Svalbard. I mean, that's a real haul. This is the willow ptarmigan. The P is not pronounced in winter plumage. It's a beautiful bird, has feathers. All the feet, the legs are totally covered with feathers, and they act as snowshoes. That's what it does. There's plenty of these. They're not threatened or endangered. They're on everybody's dinner menu, frankly. And they eat these little dark seeds that you see that's how they survive in the winter. They eat those little dark seeds that you see scattered on the snow. They're very pretty bird. This is the male. The male has that little red chevron above its eye, and but they are a pretty bird. We saw one Arctic fox the whole time. I was hoping we'd see more of it, hoping he would be more cooperative, but he was on his way somewhere.
He looks very, very determined.
Yes, he was actually running full tilt. So all of us, the cameras were just firing away, trying to get this guy, and he didn't make a return appearance either. And any more questions? Yeah.
Did they guide to discuss how the seal population is holding up?
Apparently the seal population is doing well, but they too have to wait till the ice freezes up. Once Hudson Bay melts, or that part of it, they have to move on some other place. And that's the problem, that the bears then have, that is their favorite food, the seals, the ringed seal. So the seals are doing okay, but the bears aren't.
So they have to go further in order to find it.
Yes, yeah. And once the ice melts and it forces the Hudson Bay population of bears to land, that's it for any substantial food for them. So they have to live on, they really have to eat up, and pack on the weight to get through this fasting period. And frankly, some of them don't make it. They don't.
Now, you were up there in November. What was the temperatures? Did they range down below zero, or?
At night, yes, 20 below. The wind, I didn't look at the weather. I didn't want to know. But the first night we stayed out on those buggies. We go back to the Tundra Buggy Lodge, that one I don't have the number of at the moment. We, in the sleeping buggy, the wind was so strong that first night, we all could feel the buggy moving. This is a 40,000-pound vehicle. This, yes. And maybe it's because we were on the end one. I don't know. I don't think so. But you could just feel it moving from the force of the wind. Yeah.
So to get to the food cars, did you have to go through each buggy?
Yes, yeah, yeah. You have to
You
walk
weren't
it.
allowed to get, you didn't get touch ground.
No, they tell you that too. You will not set foot on ground once you enter the lodge. Once you get-
So that means the buggy that you're traveling in docks against it, kind of?
Yeah, yes. This is a maintenance shed there, maintenance buggy. So our driver would, he would back in and they have no rear view mirror. So the guide has to get out and tell them, well, 6 more feet, 5 feet, you know, yeah. And sit in your seat and don't stand up. So this, he backs into this. This is a gate that is locked, but then they open it and we all get off.
Oh.
Yeah, so, yeah, no rear view mirror in something that size. And they have an electric or a display screen, you know, but no mirror.
Well, they might have had cameras, but
No.
backup camera?
No, that's what we thought too.
Oh, yeah.
And so they open the back door and our guide gets out and then he starts calling out the distance to the truck.
Wow.
I don't know. But, yeah, so there's other buggies for the staff to sleep in. There's a maintenance buggy. Everything is self-contained. There can be no discharge of anything.
It's like running to Mars.
Yeah,
Makes me think of a cruise ship.
yes, yeah.
So where do they get the food? Do they bring the food in and out from Churchill?
Some of it can come up on the train also. You know, I was amazed at how good the fruit was, fresh fruit. It's better than some of the stuff I've seen at the Acme sometimes. I'm not kidding you. And even the water that showers, they do laundry there. They have to do laundry there. The cook needs, the water has to be sourced. Yeah, they have, I understand, they don't say, but I understand it comes from Churchill somewhere. And they have a big, huge tank. Yeah, that's what makes travel to any remote area so expensive. There's nothing there. I bet all the provisions have to be brought in. The poor chef, there's no vegetable garden out there for him. And even if there was, the bears would wreck it.
What about the staff? Does the staff stay out there the whole time you
Yeah,
guys
the
are?
whole time, they're out
So they
there,
go out there for whatever the time is.
they're out there for months. Because these tours operate
One night after another.
October and November, so they may get a ride back into Churchill, a day off type thing, but they work very hard. All of them did. And I had no problem with, included in the cost of the trip is staff gratuity.
Yeah.
And it should be, because one night I looked, we were done dinner and I looked into the kitchen and there was our driver who served us lunch. He was washing dishes. There's no big trash can with paper plates or red plastic cups. Everything has to be reused, washed and reused. You were told, don't bring a plastic water bottle. Good.
Yeah, that is right.
Yeah, good. You had to bring a refillable vessel, as they called it. So that's fine.
So there's a lot of their employees that have multiple duties.
Oh,
If he's
oh,
driving you
abs-
and serving you and washing dishes.
Yes,
Yeah.
here, yeah. He did, he'd been doing that for 11 years. The cook, the chef, he has, I read, 12 to 16-hour days. Because he's doing 3 meals, 40 people plus staff. You never get a break. You have to stand up all that time. Yeah, They don't want recycled, they want repurposed. Everything is there and reused.
Well, I guess they're having to get their whole year's income in those couple of months.
Yes, they do offer beluga whale tours. They're one of the best operators for the beluga whales, but they're not going to get the number of people for that kind of tour that they get for polar bears. Polar bears are a big, big business. I mean, millions of dollars of big business.
How did you come by your interest in polar bear?
The year before, we had been to Alaska. And I found a guide who would take us to this very remote place to photograph grizzly bears. And he said he would get us within 50 yards. Well, he did. Some of my shots were 30 yards. That's close. But grizzly bears are big bears. But we went by boat. We didn't take one of those, what I call puddle jumpers. And that's why we got to see polar bears during this period of time that puddle jumper flights were canceled due to bad weather.
You mean grizzly bears?
Grizzly bears, yes, sorry. But I didn't know this, but I found out in my research. Polar bears evolved from the grizzly bear, not the other way around. And over the years, am I talking too much?
No, I know.
Oh, okay. Over the years, I'll just finish this up. The coat color, the fur color changed from that brown to this cream color that we now know.
I have another question from Bill Curry. I think he's
Yes.
planning a trip.
Yeah,
I'd like to
I
know
hope
the
so.
overall cost estimate.
Okay.
What do you think it was?
Yeah, I was curious about that too, what their published rates were.
Now, I checked yesterday. We went November last year, so one person, now remember, remote, very remote, and your chartered flight to get to Churchill. Yes, yeah, that's included, so it's about $11,000 a person. All your meals, obviously.
And that's
So-
not your flight to Winnipeg.
No.
That's
no,
just from
no,
the
that's
charter through, okay.
That's right, you're on your own for that, and you have to have the mandatory trip insurance. That also includes your group hotel day of. Now, we added the day because you just can't depend, stuff happens, you can't depend on the airline. It could be bad weather, it could be this, a bird striking an engine, who knows? So we added an extra day, and that took the stress out of, are we gonna get there when we need to be there? So, yeah, that's a lot of money, but travel to remote parts of the world, no matter where it is, it's expensive.
Back to polar bears, you said the male bears are only there for those 2 months waiting for the ice to freeze. Where are they before that?
Actually, they come ashore, they come to land sometime in the spring, late spring, when the ice melts. So they are forced
In this same area?
in the same area,
I
yes,
see.
yeah. I assume that it's this innate knowledge of they have to get back to that area.
Okay.
That, so the males can be fasting up to 5 months, and the females can go up to 8 months. Otherwise, they're out on the ice, that's where they
But
live.
you said they're only coming in there for those 2 months, mostly
Well,
gathering in that area.
Oh, towards the end of, yes, October, November, yes. They know that they're waiting for the ice to freeze, so they start congregating in that area. They know this. They're testing the ice. We didn't see them do it, but our guide said they go out and test the ice. And they're hungry by that time.
Where are they?
You mean when they're on land?
Yeah.
Oh, they're free roaming. They can be anywhere.
Oh, okay.
They travel great distances normally anyway, so they go, that brings me to something else, a point I'll make. They go wherever they want, so roam over a large area, you have to sign a waiver with this company, this Frontiers North Adventure, saying, you understand, you may not see polar bears. Yeah, yes.
Donna, did the polar bears go much further south than
No,
Churchill?
no.
Okay, well, do they go further north? Or is it pretty much like a band?
No, they pretty much stay in that area.
What
Each
they'll go?
populations don't, they don't overlap.
Ah,
This
okay.
is a land-fast, what they call land-fast ice population. And it's just like in Svalbard in Norway, they're pretty much confined, and that's where the problem is, because they're not gonna wander real far looking for food. They can't. So, yes, but this waiver is something you also have to sign and accept now. We were told by our guide, I don't know if he tells everybody this or not, I don't think so. We did exceptionally well on the number that we saw, which somebody said, I wasn't counting, and frankly, other than the female, the males all look the same. I mean, how do you know? Well, they do. Somebody said 11 polar bears. And that doesn't sound like much. And it just shows you how big that landmass is. That wildlife management area is roughly 1,900 acres. They go where they want and they do what they want. Some of them are closer to the boreal forest. We didn't go to the boreal forest area.
But they followed you through Churchill.
But we did, yes.
You obviously saw enough to get some fabulous
Yes,
photos.
yeah,
so
that's-
it was
we
well
thought-
worth it.
Dick and I thought, well, if we see one or two, we're gonna be real happy. Well, we saw more than that, so we were still real happy. So, that's what I know. Any other questions?
Well, thank you so
Very
much.
nice.